CPANEL. And Eric Ellis, who is Vice President of Customer Experience at CPANEL, is going to join us. Eric has been in the web hosting industry for 20 years and he's spent a large part of that at CPANEL, where today he is responsible for the customer experience. He's going to be talking about what makes CPANEL great and how he's working with his people to continue that experience that is delivered through the CPANEL product. Eric, please come and join me on stage. It's just waiting for the clicker. We're going to bring that back. It's just going up on the tightrope at the moment on the slack line. We're going to bring it back from the slack line. Here it is, from the slack line to Eric Ellis. Thank you. You're all set.
Wow, that guy before me, he risked his life to do some really amazing things, and I just want to talk a little bit about software. But I guess I'll go ahead and get started. My name's Eric. I've been with CPANEL for a long time. I started off in technical support, and then after a couple of years I worked on our Encompass Windows project, and then after that I was the support manager, where I hired a lot of really smart analysts that fixed just about anything in the product, and a lot of things that weren't. And then before that job, I was the director of development operations. What that meant was I got to hire really, really smart people who became teams and we built software. But before that, I worked at a place called PDQ. And PDQ.net is not even around enough for me to find its logo online anymore. So it's not this chicken tender place that you see up on the screen. It was a software company that sold dial-up and DSL. And to get on the DSL team, I drank a bottle of Tabasco sauce for a bet. It wouldn't have been so bad if I hadn't splashed myself in the eyes. So we thought we were going to be rich because we had sold a DSL line to every single member of this company. It's a local Houston energy company called Enron. Well, you know what happened next. That did, the crash. It was a cruel twist of fate. I had to go back from seeing the world of technology to a little hardware store that I worked at. So it was the worst of times. I'd gone from seeing what technology could make and do and happen, and then got pushed back into selling nuts and bolts for a living. So I met this little birdie that changed my life, and I'll go from there. So enough about me. Let's talk about technology. At its root, what is technology? Technology is the practice of applying knowledge of problems around us and using that knowledge to solve those problems. We fight our problems with the tools. From arrows to wheels to rockets to virtual reality, technology is the thing that continues to help us move forward as a species. With technology, we've done everything from eradicate diseases like polio to argue over the color of a silly dress. Technology as a tool, well, the bad parts of our embrace of technology are very obvious, like chaos. Wait, that's my little brother at CPANEL Conference 2013, also very chaotic. Technology in its growth is inherently chaotic. We bolt things on after the fact. We try to improve something, and a lot of times we introduce new problems. And chaos is difficult to predict. Much like the two 7 of spades up on the screen there. Why does that work that way? And just because something's interesting doesn't mean it's going to turn out for the good. Poor doggo. This is especially true in our industry. There's been a few stumbles that we've made. And don't even get me started on Red Hat 8. I'm still bitter. We have high expectations for software. But software is built by humans, like this guy. Thus far, we're not able to produce bug-free software, and the human factor, multiplied by the number of humans, can break things. So vendors like Exum, Dovecot, Spam Assassin, MySQL, Horde, Roundcube, and of course cPanel still fall prey to the human factor and end up with bugs. That means stability is very difficult to achieve at times. And moving too fast can make people very uncomfortable. Success can be very difficult to anticipate as well. Just because you did something once doesn't mean you're going to get to do it again. So there are some good things to technology that aren't chaos. We've learned to reduce the amount of human labor for our most basic needs. It's made us healthier, live longer, and have better lives. And I love this graphic here. It's helped us increase our understanding. There's so much going on and so much important. It's helped bring us together more often, more easily, and more quickly. It's excited and terrified us. It's even learned to build itself. Each of these things is good and bad. Each of them appeals to different people, good and bad. So take these three people here. We use Scrum at cPanel, and so we have user models. And these are three user models that I'd like to share with you. So take it first, Jules here. Jules loves to find bugs. He invests in Bitcoin. He roots his Android phone. Parker is going to wait 2 months to buy the next phone and cancels all of her free trials. Chase has a 6-year-old phone, and he doesn't like your shoes. At our company, it's our job to make all three of these users happy. So internally, we have to kind of play let's make a deal. So this is the point where I hook you with the dramatic music for the cPanel tiered release system. These are the tiers we have right now, and I'll explain a little bit of them to you. The tiered release system was introduced very early on to cPanel, and the tiers apply to users that are risk takers and stability seekers. So let's get started with Edge. Edge is the bleeding edge. Sometimes Edge is whenever the release marshal gets up from his desk, he'll publish another build of Edge. This represents about 0.5% of everyone who runs cPanel and WHM servers. It provides us with some very valuable feedback from real-world situations very early on in our development process. Sometimes we're not even done with our development process. If you're a cPanel employee, this is the version you run because you want to see your work out in the internet as quickly as possible, and that's why I run Edge on my system. Since this is the only public-facing development build, you'll see weird things on it, like odd version build numbers. So version 69, version 71 could live out in Edge until they're published to a production tier. Which brings me to the current tier. The current tier is the first of our 4 production tiers. It represents just over 1%. It's twice as much as the Edge tier, but it gives us a whole lot more feedback for things that customers get. The release tier represents the overwhelming majority of cPanel servers. There are so many updates for this process that we have to slow it down and roll it out over 6 days, which means if you are unlucky enough to have a problem on day 1, we'll fix it before it happens on day 2. Or we could stop the release altogether and take our time to fix it. And anyone who wants to get the update immediately could just up CP and get onto the latest version. If you install cPanel by default, this is the version you get, kind of right here in the middle. Not bleeding edge, not a release candidate, but release. So about 3% of our users for cPanel use the stable tier. They get fewer updates. Those updates are tested by the other 90% of our users. The downside is changes can be very, very dramatic. You haven't updated in a while, and all of a sudden it looks very different. The LTS tier is used by about 7% of our cPanel servers. Each year, the first version of cPanel that hits stable enters the LTS tier. We have a lot of rules internally about what we can and can't put in this version of the product. It will get the security releases and bug fixes and anything else that comes out with our product it just lives with us for a year, and so we want to be really good stewards of that version so we can have a successful year of that long-term release. So why do we do this? We added a tier. We made all this more complicated. There's already 4 different versions of cPanel floating around. Why not add a 5th? Well, we had to do it to fix some issues. We had some late cycle bug reports. Somebody would report a bug in stable, and then it has to go all the way back through the release tier process. The QA and security overhead is pretty astounding. If you have 4 versions living in an LTS tier, and you need to tell QA to fix this one bug in all 4 of them on a couple operating systems for a couple architectures, it can take a long time to test all that. So we reduced the number of versions down to 1, and we increased that. Can you scroll down just a little bit? For a happier support team, a less stressed release marshal, and a QA team that doesn't murder us in our sleep. So our 3 user models end up here. Jules goes right to the bleeding edge, Parker finds the release tier, and Chase hangs back on LTS. You find a happy place between loves to find bugs and hates change. So yeah, everything kind of works out for the best. Everything's awesome. And that's how we know we really do care about how you get our updates and how they live on your server.
Thank you so much. Eric, thank you so much. So we've got time for a couple of questions. First of all, I love the simplification. I hate 5. It's a very awkward number to deal with. 3 is fabulous. Make it simple. Give people 3 tiers. Wonderful simplification. First question to Eric is, how long does it take to test a single release of cPanel and WHM?
It depends on the version, quite a bit. If it's a minor version, it might be very quick. It may be just the changes that happen between that version, the bugs that got fixed, the cases that got made. If it's a brand new version, you could have a process that, like the LBCL that's going on right now, that might take most of the week. So it could be a couple of hours. It could be a whole week worth of QA people beating on it.
Okay. Second question. What has cPanel done to improve that recently?
A lot of automation. So the team that I also work with, we put together extra hypervisors and testing framework to run our automated test every single night against every single build of the product we have. So it's a very extensive test suite, and it basically just gives out a nice report every morning for the developers and quality assurance folks to look at.
Perfect. Does anyone in the audience have a question they'd like to ask Eric? Take advantage of this opportunity, please. Put your hand up and we'll get a microphone to you. Otherwise, I've got one. Yes, there's one over here I can see. No, this person's question is, what's scratching his eye?
Hi, I'm Shin Ho from Sister4. About the LTS version, is there a chance that there is a bug even if you release it? And if so, how do you handle that then?
So all software has bugs. There's a bug, we just haven't found it yet. It exists out in the wild. We will fix the bug in the current version and then backport it very carefully back to the older version of the product. If it's a showstopper, like a big bug, we would do it a lot quicker. But the existing kind of bugs that we found in the product, we would backport them to a release of that LTS version.
Thank you. Great question. We have time for another question. Who would like to ask another question? See, you've done such a remarkable job on your presentation, Eric. There are no questions, but I have one. Are there any plans to add versions of the LTS tier more regularly? Why or why not?
So the burden of testing all those different versions is very extensive. And right now we can test a major version with a couple of people very quickly. Adding another LTS version means every change has to get tested by another version and another handful of operating systems to go through as well. And that would take quite a bit longer. So we really are sticking to one LTS version.
And that's annual.
Annually, yes.
Very good.
So version 70 will become our LTS version for all of 2018 and a little bit of 2019.
Okay, cool. Very good. So overall, the first big message is you've reduced the 5 tiers to 3.
There were the 3 user models that kind of fit into the 5 different places.
Okay.
Yes.
So they map together that way.
Yes.
All right, my misunderstanding. Very good. All right, so what else can we take advantage of for Eric while we have him with us today? Otherwise, he's going back to Texas and we're going to lose him, so let's take advantage. Okay, good. So thank you so much, Eric, for joining us. Fabulous presentation. And where can they find you on your booth, by the way?
We're right out here, right in front of the door.
Right outside.
Yes.
Please come and see Eric and the rest of the team at the cPanel booth right outside the hall here. Thank you again, Eric.
Thank you. Probably want that.
Yes, thank you.